Welcome into Weekly Champions right here on Wrestling Spotlight. Gerald, Bentley. I'm joined by Sonny, the Man Eagle, Cain. If you're watching us, the best places to watch us, either on the TCL TV, just hit that TV Plus button. We're right there. Sports.tv, Carbon TV, or download the free True TV Plus app. You get a lot of great channels there. It's available anywhere you get your apps, totally free. Sonny, it was a big week in the world of wrestling. I did want to address, I have the graphic up behind me. That's the ultimate finesser, Chris Bey, member of ABC, part of the Bullet Club. And he was involved in that three-way ladders match for the TNA title. Suffered a neck injury, had to be taken to the hospital in Detroit to receive surgery. I've been in contact with people associated with Chris Bey, talked with Brittany Brooks, the David Difference from Future Stars of Wrestling. And then just this afternoon, Chris put out a statement saying that the road to recovery is beginning. Surgery was successful, but if you get the opportunity to help out Chris, you can look at the Wrestling Spotlight X account. I have the link to the GoFundMe up there for him. And you can go to Pro Wrestling Tees and get this shirt that is going to have all the proceeds directed right to Chris Bey. He's really a super nice guy. You can see the support just flooding in from across the pro wrestling community. And, you know, Sonny, it's a reminder that this is a contact sport and the risk of injuries is there all the time. And especially in wrestling, the neck is, you know, that is the area where you see a lot of injuries. Heck, you can take a look. Sting was out for years because of a neck injury. Christian Cage, Edge, the rated R superstar Adam Copeland, Bryan Danielson retiring basically because of neck injuries. So it's something that is a constant part of pro wrestling. And, you know, we definitely wish Chris Bey the best. He's really a super person. If you get a chance to meet him, I've ran into him and met with him at a couple of Future Stars of Wrestling shows in Las Vegas. Easily one of the top wrestlers to come out of the Las Vegas area. And if you get a chance to just go on the TNA Wrestling channel and watch some of the matches, either his solo work or his tag work with his partner Ace Austin, just an incredible performer. And I think it's just a reminder, Sonny, that the people are going out there and they're putting their bodies on the line for your entertainment.
Yes, sir. I myself took a neck injury in training camp, and that put me on cold feet from doing some of the things that I may would have done had I not taken the injury. And so I went up for a Ric Flair body slam from a real big dude, and came down hard, and
Yeah.
I took a vertebrae neck injury. And now that I'm losing the weights, it seems to bother me less. And when I work out, it seems to bother me less. So those are good things. But people ask me all the time, is it all fake? And I tell them no. I said, I got scars on my head. I've got an injury I suffered many years ago. I said, it's not all fake. Your bodies are colliding in the ring.
Yeah.
And they say, well, don't you know how to fall? And I've talked about this before. Well, you better hope so, because that's your body landing. And couch critics have always been that, couch critics. And until you step up and go to a training camp or something of that sort, or are an amateur wrestler in school like you and I were, then I don't think that their opinion is as validated as ours when it comes to how real the sport is.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think people just watching have really an idea of just how hard some of the impacts are. Even something as simple as running the ropes. The ropes
yes,
aren't
sir.
soft. They're steel cables wrapped in plastic. I mean,
They
you run
are.
into the
And
ropes, you get welts. I mean,
Rick Steamboat
it
told
just is.
told me at a show to stop running the ropes and circle my opponent. He said that that was a training school teaching that I had to learn there, but it wasn't necessary in the ring every match. And
Yeah,
I said, well, Chief, I've had promoters tell me to hit the ropes. He said, well, hit them, but don't stay on them. And
yeah, yeah,
that was the night. I mean, that came from up top, and from that night on, I quit hitting them as hard. But
yeah.
I have an
I mean,
injury on my
totally understand.
on the back of my neck to this day from where I hit the ropes, learning to hit the
Mm,
ropes. And you just do what you do. I mean, it's like football or anything else. I don't know why people want to be so hard on pro wrestling, to tell you the truth. I mean, who can look at a match like we had last week with Mark Briscoe and the Learning Tree,
uh-huh.
uh, and not Chris Jericho, and not walk away from that and say, well, they were already hitting out there, because they were already hitting out there. And
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
you know,
those
I
are a couple of, well-seasoned veterans.
right, and it just irritates me to no end when people say it's all fake. I just want to, I want to show them.
Yeah. Oh, I know. That's a, fighting word in pro wrestling circles. And I want to give credit to the TNA wrestling staff, because their medical staff did a great job with both Chris and with El Hilo del Vikingo, who had a knee injury as a result of a tope suicido, and just didn't hit the landing quite right. And who knows, maybe it was part of a lingering injury, because he had just come back from a broken leg. And you're talking two of the most electrifying young performers in the sport. So by all means, all of our prayers from everybody related to Wrestling Spotlight to both Chris Bey and El Hilo del Vikingo, because I mean it is real. I wanted to we're going to preview Crown Jewel, which is coming up this weekend, but I did want to mention that was the biggest event of the TNA calendar, Bound for Glory, and you did have a couple of changes in the champions. Masha Slamovich, your new women's champion, she defeats the juggernaut Jordan Grace, and something you've been talking about for months in that same match where Chris Bey ended up with the injury. Matt and Jeff Hardy become TNA Tag Team Champions. You see all the champions with TNA there. PCO, the Perfect Creation, won. Your women's tag champions, Nick Nemeth, the Wanted Man, the former Dolph Ziggler, he won and defended the TNA title against Joe Hendry. Masha Slamovich, the Hardy Boys, and then Speedball Mike Bailey holds on to that X Division title. He did lose the X Division title the next day to Moose, but do want to give credit to TNA and wanted to ask you about the Hardy Boys winning those tag titles. You've been talking about that coming up for months.
Yes, sir. I think it's grand. Now the WWE has to notice them, because they are tag team champions for a third time in TNA. And I just saw it coming, and I think they're going to do great things in the WWE still. I have heard them talking about the end of the road, though, a little bit on
Mm-hmm.
X, and makes you wonder how at the end of the road they are at this point. I mean, with the win and being starting to be looked at by WWE again. Jeff Hardy did make a comment that he would go into Hall of Fame if he and his brother could go at the same time. So he didn't
Oh,
want to go as a single.
yeah,
So
I'm sure they will be. Yeah, and that was controversy during the time when Matt was signed to AEW and Jeff was in WWE, and he stood up and said, "No, I'm not going to go in by myself." Yeah, I'm sure they'll go in together. How do you feel about? I mean, I think TNA Wrestling they're doing a really good job. It's something that they've been there. Impact, TNA, they've been around now for well over 20 years, and I do think they're picking up steam. It's a little bit of a challenge to watch because they're only on their one cable channel, Access Cable, which is a relatively limited distribution. They do offer the TNA Plus subscription, and they've been marketing that hard lately. You can get it for $35 for the remainder of the year. Really a good value if you just want to catch up on some high quality professional wrestling. You see some of the names you see floating around in AEW and MLW wrestling and TNA as well. And it's a good young crop of wrestlers supplemented by the veteran core with guys like Eddie Edwards, with Nick Nemeth, who's re-imaged himself since leaving the WWE, and rising sensation in Joe Hendry, who's become an overnight sensation after 11 years.
Well, I think it's a neat organization. I do like the way they're handling the veteran wrestlers in the organization. I have watched them off and on for a long time. I've started paying more attention to them as of late. But we just didn't have a lot of places to go after McMahon came to North Carolina and bought up the independents here and closed everybody down.
Hmm.
There was a dark day in wrestling during those few years. And if you didn't want to go states away, as I said before, and hope to make a few bucks, um, your business was dried up. And
Yeah.
that's where I found myself. But today, you could go to TNA, you could go to Ring of Honor still a little bit. You could
Hmm.
go here, there, and yonder, and do the hop around, and it's not as big a deal as it was, and it is coming back tenfold. And I think it's fantastic for the younger wrestlers coming up in it, like your Ricky Morton's son, Kerry, and
Kerry Morton, sure.
and folks like that who are going to be the flagship of the younger generation. So
Yeah.
that's
Well, and let's talk about that for just a couple minutes too before we get into Crown Jewel. WWE did announce, and this is something that's a huge change from the Vince McMahon era. You are
yes,
seeing some very different moves made by the WWE under Triple H's regime and as part of TKO. They rolled out today WWE ID, which is WWE Independent Development. So they are actually picking wrestling schools and territories, if you will, that they're going to focus on basically handpicking some independent talent. And then they're also going to branch out eventually and sign independent standouts to a WWE ID contract. The initial launch, not surprisingly, they stayed pretty close to home. It includes Booker T's Reality of Wrestling, which is available online, Cody Rhodes and QT Marshall's Nightmare Factory, and Seth Rollins' Black and Bold Academy, which is out of Davenport, Iowa, right around Des Moines. And I think it's a great start because independent wrestling is booming to such a degree now, probably to a level that it really hasn't since the early 80s. It's good
right.
to see WWE leaning in because AEW already has a pretty strong footprint in independent wrestling where AEW talent can go and be on independent shows and frequently works through independent circuits. I think it's great to see WWE getting involved while still having NXT as a feeder program. And in the announcement, Cody Rhodes talked about how he believes NXT isn't necessarily a developmental territory anymore. It's more of like a finishing school to just take you from the top already and get you up to that next level, which I think makes sense. And that explains expanding out.
Yes, sir. And it's just fantastic to see that they are not in such a um, having tunnel vision on one certain way of doing things. So
Hmm.
if the nod goes to Triple H for seeing that, then that's fine too. But
Yeah.
it's bound to bring in all kinds of talent the way they're scooping in and taking a look around now. Instead of competing against each other, it's nice to see them trying to work together now and join and make a full unit out of it, compared to how it was back when I did it.
Yeah.
So
And they can do both, right? They've been signing collegiate athletes to NIL deals and teaching them how to wrestle. And it's worked on some occasions. I mean, obviously, Braun Breaker had, quite a few familial ties, and he wasn't just your former college football player, part of the Steiner family. But Tiffany Stratton is a great example of it working.
right, and I like Tiffany Stratton for that reason. And that there are a couple of other girls who have gone through the training program too, and
Sure.
they seem to be picking up traction now for borrowing the phrase from you. But anyway, it's
Yeah.
just a nice
Lash
momentum
Legend.
change. Yes, sir.
Lash
And
Legend, the basketball player. Yeah.
I think we're going to see a lot of good things coming down the pike as a result of the new rollout.
Hmm.
So it's
Well,
going to be a fair playing field.
yeah, let's get into Crown Jewel. It's taking place Saturday, November 2nd. It's going to be an early event because you're in a different time zone. It's Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. You can see it on Peacock, noon Central, 1 Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. But obviously, it's on Peacock, so you can watch it whenever you're going to watch it. 7 matches have been announced at this time. There may be one more that goes into like a pre-show. That's a big match card though for WWE Premium Live events. They've really been kind of coming in at 5 matches for most of them. So this is a major event and another international venue where they get a packed crowd, an intense crowd. So outside of the time, this is going to be a big show. We already knew the two big main events with the champions of each brand going at each other for the crown jewel champion. Cody Rhodes, your undisputed WWE champion, the former Universal title, going up against the ring general, Gunther, the world heavyweight champion. What do you think about these two matching up? The last big high profile match they had was in Cody's return at the Royal Rumble when he was the last entrant and outlasted Gunther to get that title shot at WrestleMania.
Well, I may have egg on my face, but I'm still rooting for Cody. I think Cody's the better of the two. So
Yeah,
that's
well,
my pick.
I could see that. I think Gunther's ego gets in the way, and Cody's able to take advantage of it and come from behind in the traditional Rhodes fashion.
I do like the ring general approach. I like his image. I just think he's a little too arrogant right now
Yeah,
for a whole lot of change. So
I would agree with
I
that.
think that's going to be to Cody's advantage.
I like
Uh,
that. Yeah, I agree. The women's matchup, Liv Morgan shows you can only live once when she takes on the irresistible force that is Nia Jax, your SmackDown Women's Champion. How do you feel about that? I mean, Nia Jax is a impressive athlete and really is doing some of the best ring work she has in her whole WWE career.
I'm going with Nia Jax. I do respect Liv Morgan, but I think that Nia Jax is the better of the two at this
Well, and
point.
I think Nia may get a unrequested assist from one Rhea Ripley, who's obviously not done yet with Liv Morgan.
And I've wondered about that. I thought, well, maybe that'll be an angle shot in there too. So
Your women's tag team titles on the line in a fatal four-way. So it's another one of these matches when Jade and Bianca lost the last time. It was a three-way matchup, so they lost the title without getting pinned. Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair defending against Damage Control, Io Sky, and Kairi Sane, Piper Niven and Chelsea Green, and Metaphor from NXT, one of the ladies we talked about being a non-traditional pro wrestling athlete, Lash Legend, former basketball player, just like Jade Cargill, and Jakara Jackson. I think Jade and Bianca win, but
That's
I
my
do have
pick.
to say, Lash is a amazingly impressive athlete. If you don't remember, she's the lady who body slammed Otis. That's the
I thought
amount of
that was
strength
her.
she has. Yeah, Otis is a big boy.
Yeah, like Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could pick up Otis, and I weigh 225 pounds. Lash Legend
Right,
picked him up and slammed him. That was pretty darn
right.
impressive.
Yeah,
Should be a fun match because, eight person, eight people running around the ring. That always makes for a crazy match. And WWE Premium Live Event matches are at a different level than what you usually see on the TV. Now, a match that was quite crazy for TV. They had the backyard brawl last night on Monday Night Raw. Seth freaking Rollins hit a curb stomp on Bronson Reed on the hood of a car. Seth was slammed outside of the bed of a truck onto a car. Seth freaking Rollins, the visionary, taking on big Bronson Reed. How do you feel about this one? Bronson Reed really getting the biggest push he has in his return to the WWE. He's a former TNA champion. He was Jonah in TNA and in New Japan.
that one was. Um, I like Seth Rollins. I'm a Seth Rollins fan somewhat, and I'm going for Seth Rollins. So.
I I do too, but I'm gonna I'm gonna go on the other side. I think Bronson Reed gets the win here because, quite honestly, he needs to win more than Seth Rollins does, and he is an impressive physical force. Not that Seth can't win because he obviously can. The U.S. Heavyweight Championship is up for grabs against three guys. It's basically been a three-person division for the last 3 months in WWE. Andrade El Idolo, Carmelo Hayes, and L.A. Knight. Yeah, going at it. I'm I'm gonna go with Andrade because I'm a big fan of Andrade. I think he's a terrific worker. He's one of the very few third generation pro wrestlers out there. Um, I think it would be great to see him get the belt back. LA Knight worked really hard and definitely deserved this title run. He had to put in a lot of work. If you remember, or we're sticking on that TNA theme tonight. He was Eli Drake, yeah, in TNA and the NWA. The name LA Knight came from the wrestlers' nights that he hosted at his apartment in LA. So it was LA Knight
Oh,
at Eli Drake's place. That's where the LA Knight name comes from. Um, Terrific performer too, and deceptively athletic. This should be a terrific match.
I'm going. It should be. I'm going with Andre on this too. I've been watching him all year, and I think he has it. I just think he's impressive to watch, and he doesn't fade away on you when he's working. He comes head on, and I like that type of thing. So I can't see LA Knight winning it at this point, but Andre's got the momentum of the crowd behind him, I think, and I think it's going to be his night.
Well, and they've built this up because Andrade El Idolo and Carmelo Hayes had a best of 7 series. That's what I'm saying. It's really been they've been the
It's like a
U.S.
World
champions
Series.
division. Yeah, yeah, and of course, in wrestling, a best of 7 goes 3-3 with a rubber match. But
Yeah.
I think you're seeing 3 of the best in-ring workers in the company. Mello doesn't miss, and he has been a star in waiting since his time in NXT. The final match at the NXT event in last year's WrestleMania had the Wells Fargo Center jumping with Mello going up against Trick Williams. It was a terrific match. And for people that were there that didn't watch NXT, after a couple of minutes, they were all behind both of them in the match. It was really a great atmosphere. Andrade, I think, has maybe one of the most devastating looking moves in pro wrestling with the spinning back elbow he hits. His version of the
It's
Judas
crazy.
effect. It actually seems to be a harder move than Chris Jericho's. I would put it up there with Swerve Strickland's house call as being one of the moves that, while simple, is probably the most devastating looking move in the business. So, yeah, that should be a great match. And then finally, the grudge match, which you knew was coming because it's 2 guys whose history has been not being able to trust them. Randy Orton, the Viper, versus Kevin Owens.
Um,
And actually, not finally. There's the one big match that we'll get to.
I've been watching Randy a while, and I like Randy Orton, so I'm going to go with Randy Orton.
Yeah, I could see Kevin Owens getting a little out of control and doing something that cost him. And of course, the match that is setting up Survivor Series. Acknowledge Roman Reigns, the original tribal chief. The Usos are back together, Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso, and they're going to take on the new bloodline, the wannabe bloodline, if you will, Solo Sikoa and 2 of the 3, Jacob Fatu, the Samoan werewolf, or Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, the Gorillas of Destruction. I think I think this goes to Solo and the new bloodline because they're going to do something. There'll be some outside interference, and it'll just evolve into a mess where they end up getting a win because you just see the inevitable that this goes to Survivor Series and is the main event and is settled in the War Games match, the double ring steel cage match. Hopefully, with Sami Zayn joining forces with Roman and the Usos and putting back together what was probably the most popular iteration of the bloodline, going up against Solo and Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, and Tonga Loa.
Well, I'm on the opposite side of the ring. I like Roman
Okay.
on this one, and I think he's stepped outside his comfort zone to put the family back together, and is trying to somehow get the new bloodline and the old bloodline to be one again. And I think they have a fighting chance there. I do agree with some outside interference. I do agree with some foul play, but I think in the end, if Roman keeps it together, it could be Roman Reigns and his team.
Well, it's awfully hard to bet against Roman Reigns. I agree with that. And the Usos are the most decorated tag team in WWE history. But I just think there's one more big payoff match coming, and that's coming at Survivor Series. Now,
And
Roman is, I mean, he came back and instantly, without saying a word, went from being the heel champion to being the biggest face in the company next to Cody.
he did, and War Games actually came from World Championship Wrestling, and made it
Absolutely, yeah.
into WWE. So the War Games have been around for a minute, and
Uh-huh.
I do think both teams go to the War Games, but I just feel an upset. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it should be a terrific card, and obviously we'll be able to get back after it and kind of break it down. I mean, they're committed to Saudi Arabia. There's no reason to complain about it or say, "Oh, why is it at this time?" Because they're committing, and it's not what they were doing where it was the greatest hits tour. They're going at it with big matches, with main event stars, and highlighting the women's matches too, which is something that people didn't think was going to happen in Saudi Arabia, but they're doing it. So it's definitely evolved as these crown jewel events have gone on. Here's that match card for the six-man tag team. We still don't know who are going to be the representatives for the new bloodline, but there you go. The Usos, Roman Reigns back together, and Solo Sikoa, the Gorillas of Destiny, and the Samoan Werewolf. So definitely see what goes on. 12 Central, 1 Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, and then available on Peacock, so you can check it out. Not a pay-per-view. You can just go ahead and see it. Now it's time for the weekly champions, so we'll go ahead and introduce that segment right here on Wrestling Spotlight.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Taya Valkyrie La Güera Loca, and you are watching Wrestling Spotlight.
Okay, Sonny, we got the big Wrestling Spotlight title, and you got one there now too.
I got one here too.
You do. So who's your champion this week?
I have two this week. First of all, I'd like to say the match of the year, I think, so far is Mark Briscoe and the Burning Tree, Chris Jericho. I think without a doubt that was the biggest deal that I've seen all year long. I have two champions this week. One, my friend Ricky the Dragon Steamboat against CM Punk. I think he deserves a championship belt for this week. And two, the Hardy Boys, the boys from Cameron, Matt and Jeff Hardy. I think that they deserve a belt apiece.
Absolutely, yeah, I'll give you that one. And I'll stick with, well, here, I'll go with two. This guy for his Halloween costume. That's great. He's got the fantastic American Nightmare mask, the belt. He's all set, and the whole ring jacket. And probably, I'd imagine there's a music player playing Kingdom behind him. That's pretty neat. And I'll go with my champion of the week. I'm going to go with the guy that is getting an outpouring of support from the pro wrestling community. Las Vegas's own, the ultimate finesser, dashing Chris Bey. If you get a chance, go on to Pro Wrestling Tees and go ahead and get that shirt. The proceeds will go directly to him. He's out of surgery. The recovery process has started, but obviously it's going to be a long time before he's able to get back into the ring. And, we want to help out as much as we can. You can also go to follow us on Twitter, on X, and you can see the GoFundMe account that has been started by a couple of Chris's best friends. So it is legitimate. Donations have already come in from Matt Hardy, from Cody Rhodes, from Matt Cardona, from Chris Jericho, and lots of other members of the pro wrestling community, just to give a little support to Chris Bey, because the hard part's going to be that rehab, and I'm sure he'll do it.
Absolutely.
Best wishes, all of our prayers to you from Wrestling Spotlight. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up for this week on Weekly Champions. You're watching Wrestling Spotlight right here on TCL Plus, on Carbon, on Sports.tv, or on that True TV Plus app. For Sonny the Man Eagle Cain, I'm Gerald Bentley. Thanks a lot for joining us, and stay tuned for more sports and entertainment right here on your home of professional wrestling, Wrestling Spotlight. Have a good night.